Okay, so here's the reassembly of the counter shaft that I promised. So you start with the counter shaft. If you notice, there was never a thrust washer on here where it sat in the casing, like on some of the Honda transmissions. This one doesn't have it. And I'm wondering if it's because when it drives against the differential, it always pushes, on all the forward gears, it pushes away from this surface. So there's bearings on this end. That's probably why, I'm just guessing. There's the counter shaft. We're going to start with the needle bearing. That's the way it came off. I don't think there's a top and a bottom, but I'll put it back on the way it came off. And then we have the first gear. No washer, no nothing. Just goes on top of here. Sits on the needle bearing. First gear. Then you have the thrust damper for first. Sits down in this little slot. Push it in very firmly. It's got 3 tabs on it. 1, 2, 3 little fingers that hook over. You have to make sure. I'm going to take this apart. Okay, synchro mesh with the ring. There's the ring, synchro mesh and ring. So we got the first gear and the damper on. Synchro mesh with its spring ring on in place goes on next. Okay, that's good. Okay, when we put this part on, there's the 3 indentations there, there, and there. They have to go on and line up in those 3 little things. You have to put it with the part marked up, up. So put this on. Rotate this slowly until you feel it right there. And now it's caught the damper. There's a damper foot. Those marks line up with each other. Quiet, see? There. You'll feel it engage. So engage the 3 slots with the 3 feet in the damper in the bottom. Good enough? Okay, now this piece goes on. The shift ring to the top. You got to find your deep teeth again. Right there's a set. Okay, whoops. Put it in neutral. Now this goes on. Sorry, the damper goes on. Line the feet up. Second gear damper. Right there. They locked into place right there. Spacer goes on. Whoops. Spacer goes on inside the damper. The needle bearing goes on over top. Second gear goes on with the 3 holes lined up in the 3. Whoops. Now the synchro goes on first here. And it's going to go with these tabs. Make sure the spring is on. These tabs go in those slots. Okay. Last piece. There's 3 pieces to it. Okay, and I've got everything oiled up. Second gear goes in. Put this tab, and this tab, and this hole, this hole, this hole. There it goes. Okay. And with the damper engaged properly, you can see there's a bit of force required to get the second gear to turn. If you go and lock it, synchronize it in, now it's locked to the whole shaft. Back to neutral. Engaged. And I've got way more engagement. Before right there it would disengage. Still engaged, still engaged. Now it's not engaged. Try to get more engagement. So I'll go to neutral on that. Okay, this is all old stuff here. This is all old stuff. Now we come over to here. That's the second gear. I don't want to use it anymore. That's old. So now we go on with the 3rd gear, which I believe was pressed on. Yep. Okay, these gears, these two have to be tapped on. And so I tapped it on, I just found an old piece of PVC pipe. I didn't tap this one down super hard because when I torque this bolt onto the right torque setting, it'll adjust where it needs. Make sure this second gear still turns fairly free there, which it does. I just push it down and left about a 1/8 of an inch gap between the two gears. The next one goes down and these two surfaces butt up against each other here. So I'll just use my piece of plastic pipe again and see if that'll work as well as it did the first time. Okay, I have it pushed all the way on. The plastic pipe seemed to work the best. I didn't use anything but plastic and a hammer. This gear and this gear there's like a paper width of distance between them, and that'll suck any of that up. So that's the shaft so far. And now that was first, second, third, fourth, fifth gear sits on here. It's not pressed on. This bearing is pressed on, so make sure it's sitting nice and straight. Take a socket that's the size of the inner race. Don't ever push on the outer race. No bigger than the size of the inner race. And tap on that. And it's already been seated straight. It's straight in the shaft because I used a nut to get it. It's almost 3/4 of the way on. So we'll just tap on it with this. And it goes on quite easily, you can see. Okay, and it's fully seated. Now the other one goes on. And it has to go with these. Don't forget the groove goes facing up. So that'll go on here. And to get it seated straight, again, I might use my nut because that seems to work really well. Just to get it started. Otherwise, if it gets it started crooked, it's a pain in the butt. Okay, and it had the big flat washer. It's actually a bit of I think it's a bit of a thrust washer. The one on top, curved side up. Nut goes on. I'm going to torque this nut to 60 foot-pounds. That's what it came off with. I haven't found that torque spec anywhere, but when I took it off, it came off with about 55, so I'm going to put it on with about 60. Okay, in order for me to torque mine, what I'm doing is I wrapped a rag around the output splines where they attach to the differential. I put it in a vise. Lots of rag. I put a face cloth wrapped about 4 times over, then in half, and then around. So there's about 8 layers of, so no metal ever contacts the gear, strictly the rag. Tighten that up. Get the torque wrench. And let's torque it to 60 foot-pounds. It still has to seat, the bearing is still not fully seated, so it'll take a bit more yet. Okay, the bearing's coming up to its, seems like it's fully seated position. Maybe not yet. Okay, now I'm going to go to 60 foot-pounds. The easiest way to do it for me is to just go down. Or I can see 40. 50, 55. Almost 60. Do not let this shaft fall in the concrete. I think we talked about it before. Okay, I torqued this nut on to, it was actually about 80 foot-pounds. And what I did get was I put the old stake mark where I unpounded the stake. I torqued it until that stake mark lined up with this slot. That turned out to be about 80 foot-pounds. So everything's reassembled properly. I dumped a bunch of oil in the first, second synchro. New second gear, new first, second synchro, new synchro meshes, new springs. That whole assembly piece is new. That was $537. So now all the gears should exactly line up. We'll just double check on that. There we go. And it's a perfect. Well, yep. So you can see counter shaft and main shaft. First, counter first, main first, line up exactly. Yep. Counter second, main second, line up exactly. Counter third, main third, counter fourth, main fourth, counter fifth, main fifth. All the gears line up exactly the way they should. So when we're putting this back in, don't forget these two washers that go on the bottom of this shaft, the main shaft, before it goes through the hole. I ordered a new main shaft bearing, so I took those washers out of there for now. So the tranny is basically rebuilt as far as my damage was concerned. Whoops, that's an old gear. It's maybe hard to see, but yeah, my old slider teeth were worn right off. It seemed to be the bulk of the problem. Okay, and that's it, reassembled and ready to go. I'm just waiting for my input shaft bearing to come in, which won't be till Monday. Today's only Friday. And that's it. I can put the transmission back together once I get that input shaft bearing installed. That'll just take a minute. Okay, after I finished my assembly, I started thinking about it, and I wasn't too happy about the way I actually put it together. Before I had these two, this and this, all pressed down to the bottom torque applied by the nut. These gears could move back and forth, and then I had it sideways to do the tightening on this nut, and that could have allowed the little feet on the damper to slip out of the slots and move onto the high part of the gear face, so that when I tighten this down, I would be actually squeezing them and jamming them in their spots rather than having them sit in the open slots that are supplied on the face of this gear and this gear. So I took this all apart again, and you have to stand it on end. You have to position the little feet into the slot as you assemble it together. You have to make sure they stay there, don't turn any of the gears, and then you have to assemble this stuff without disturbing any of the bottom, and then you have to tighten it all on and compress it into position. And then once the slack, see now the slack is virtually, there isn't any slop left, it's all pretty much gone. So no matter what happens now, the little feet can't jump out of their slots once this top portion is pushed into position. So you have to assemble it with the little feet in the proper slots on this gear and this gear, first and second gear. Then you have to compress all this on, either with the nut or by using a socket or pushing it, or gently pushing it to maintain these in their orientation. Once this is down tight enough, you don't have to worry these little feet can't come out of the slot anymore. So I did all that, and now I'm 100% sure that the dampers are in the correct positions. However, when I did it, I was doing it quickly, and I wasn't 100% sure that I put this gear with the up thing pointing up. Not this one, but the one underneath it. It looks like this. And I looked at it closely, and I thought, well, there's no really any way to know now whether you got it correct or not. It actually looks all identical. I don't know why it even has up written on it, but I'm sure there is some difference. One difference I noticed is on this side, the little slots don't go right through. They stop short of coming into the inside here. And on this side, the little slots are machined all the way through. That's one small difference. I don't know if there's more differences. Maybe the positioning of the center in relation to the total gear width or something. I don't know. So I had a bit of a panic attack. I didn't want to take it apart again to verify that I had it in the up position. It says up right there. But directly across from the up marking is a little dash stamped in. You can see the dash that's stamped into the face. So with a flashlight, if you look on the upside, you can pull the brass. You can pull the brass away a little bit. Use a flashlight. Look in the upside, in between the gears, and you will see that little mark stamped into the face. It's not there. It is. Oh, I've only got one more to go, because I did find it and I know that it's correct now. Yeah, there it is. I can clearly see the little machined in thing. You probably can't, I don't know if you can see with this camera. Oh, there you can see it. I can see it in the camera lens now. See between the brass face right here. Sorry, right here. I look with my flashlight there. Oh, there, if you look, you can see the little dimple. So it's incorrectly. It is pointing up, which is this way. So everything together is together 100% right now. All the little feet on the dampers are correctly positioned, and the main piece is pointing up, and everything else is in the correct order. So it's 100% correct. I don't have to bother taking it apart again. Now I can sleep at night, because once it's together in the car, if something's not right, you're going to have issues. So I'm 100% sure this one is now correct.